The fog was thick like soup, hiding everything around. The human explorer Jack walked slowly through the alien jungle. His boots made soft sounds on the wet ground. Every tree looked strange, twisted, and glowing a little in the white mist. Jack had crash-landed 2 days ago. His ship was damaged, and the radio was dead. He needed help, or parts, or both. But most of all, he needed to survive, and that meant staying alert. Suddenly, a sound came from the left. A sharp crack like a twig breaking under pressure. Jack stopped moving. He held his breath and slowly reached for the small scanner on his belt. It blinked red. Something was moving nearby. He took a step forward, then another. The fog moved like ghosts around him. Then he saw it just for a second. A small shape ran across the path and disappeared into the bushes. Too fast to be a normal animal, too quiet to be a machine. Jack crouched. His heart beat faster. He knew he was not alone anymore. He followed the direction of the shape, moving. Carefully then, he heard a strange clicking noise, fast, sharp, almost like a language. That's when the trap sprang. A rope snapped up from the ground, wrapping tightly around his ankle. In 1 second, he was pulled upside down, hanging from a tree. His rifle fell from his hand and hit the ground with a thud. Jack groaned, hanging by one leg. "Great," he muttered. "Real smart Jack." Then he heard footsteps, tiny ones, light like a cat's. A shadow moved in the fog, and then it stepped forward. It was a girl, or something like a girl. She stood. No taller than Jack's waist. Her skin was pale gray. Her hair was long and silver. She had sharp purple eyes, glowing slightly in the mist, and in her small hand, she held a blade made of bone and crystal. Jack blinked, not sure what to say. The tiny alien walked closer. Her body was slim, almost too thin. She wore torn armor that looked old and battle-scarred. Her arms and legs had bruises and cuts, but her face was calm to calm. She raised her blade and pointed it at Jack's face. "Are you enemy?" she asked in a broken voice. Jack raised his hands, still hanging upside down. "No enemy, I promise," he said gently. "I'm just lost." The alien girl stared at him. Her hands trembled slightly. But she didn't lower the blade. "You landed with fire. You burned the sky," she whispered. "That wasn't my choice." Jack said, "Ship crashed. I didn't mean harm." The girl looked unsure. She stepped back, her blade still ready. Jack slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small packet of food. He opened it and held it out. "Here, you hungry?" he said. The girl's eyes locked on the food. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She took a step forward, but then she saw his bleeding leg. The rope had cut deep. "You bleed," she said. "Yeah, kinda hurts," Jack said with a weak smile. "You think maybe we can talk instead of stabbing each other?" The alien girl tilted her head. Her blade lowered just a little. Then, with a fast motion, she jumped and cut the rope with her knife. Jack dropped to the ground with a thud, groaning. In pain, she stood over him, watching. "You still not enemy?" she asked. Jack nodded. "Still not." She didn't reply. But she reached into her belt and took out a small leaf. She crushed it and pressed it against his bleeding ankle. The leaf began to glow faintly. Jack felt the pain lessen. "You live," she said simply. Jack looked at her with surprise. "Thanks," he said softly. "What's your name?" She didn't answer right away. She stood in silence, then looked around like she expected danger. "Name is Risha," she said quietly. "Risha," Jack repeated. "Nice to meet you, Risha. I'm Jack." She looked at him again, her eyes softer now. Then she suddenly stepped back, like she had done something wrong. Her hand went back to her blade, but she didn't lift it. "No one touched me before," she whispered. "Not like that." Jack didn't understand at first. "Like what?" he asked, soft. Like I matter, she said, then turned and started walking away. But after a few steps, she stopped and turned her head slightly. You come or die, she said, without emotion. Fog will eat you. Jack stood up slowly, limping on his bad leg. He picked up his rifle, looked at Risha and nodded. Lead the way, he said, and so. The human followed the tiny warrior into the fog. Not knowing that his life and hers was about to change forever, the fog began to fade as Jack followed Risha deeper into the jungle. The strange glowing plants lit their path with soft blue light. Jack's leg still hurt, but the pain was bearable now, thanks to the leaf Risha had pressed to the wound. She didn't speak much. She walked fast, her small feet making no sound. She moved like a shadow. Always watching the trees, always listening, Jack tried to keep up, limping behind her, careful not to make too much noise. They reached a rocky hill covered in moss. Risha climbed it quickly, like she had done it many times before. At the top was a hidden cave entrance, covered with vines and branches. Inside, it was warm and dry. A small fire pit lay in the center, with ash and old bones nearby. This is home, Jack asked, looking around. Temporary, Risha said. Kneeling near the fire, I move every few days. Safer that way, Jack sat down carefully, his leg throbbing again. He looked at her closely in the light. She looked younger than he first thought, maybe not even a full adult by her kind standards, but her eyes. They were old, like she had seen too much for someone so small. He reached into his bag and offered her a protein bar. She took it slowly, sniffed it, and then bit off a small piece. Her face lit up with surprise, and she quickly finished the rest. Good, she said, licking her fingers. Jack chuckled. Glad you like it. Risha didn't smile, but she gave a small nod. Then she looked at his leg again. The bandage had come loose during the walk. Blood was seeping through. Without a word, she moved toward him and pulled out another leaf from her pouch. She knelt beside him, her fingers brushing against his skin as she peeled away the old wrap. Jack stayed still, watching her. She worked quietly, cleaning the wound. Her touch was light, careful, her face serious, focused. But as her fingers moved across his skin, something changed in her eyes. Her hands began to tremble slightly. Her breathing became uneven. She paused for a moment, then looked up at him. No one ever touched me like that, she said softly. Jack blinked. What do you mean? In my world, she said slowly, we don't show care. Not even to children. Weakness is punished. Wounds are left for the body to solve. Jack felt a cold sadness in her voice. That's terrible, he whispered. She looked down. I was trained to kill at age 6. My first blade was bigger than my arm. Jack frowned. But you're just a girl. You should have had time to laugh, play, live. Risha looked confused. We don't do those things, she said. Laughing is a waste of breath. Play leads to weakness. Living means surviving battle. She finished wrapping his leg with a clean leaf and tied it with thread made from plant fibers. Then she sat back, keeping her eyes on the ground. You touched me gently, like I was not just useful, she whispered, like I was worth something. Jack leaned forward, his voice low and calm. Because you are, Risha. Her eyes widened. She shook her head. That is not what I was taught. Well, maybe what you were taught was wrong, Jack said. Everyone deserves care, even warriors, even tiny ones. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the jungle made strange sounds, creatures howling, leaves rustling, but inside the cave, there was quiet, safe silence. Risha finally broke it. Why did you not run when I pointed my blade at you? Jack smiled faintly. You looked scared, not evil. And I've learned that fear wears many masks. Risha looked away, her hands clenching. I was scared, but not of you. Then of what? of what I would become if I didn't fight. She said, of being alone, of being soft, of losing honor. Jack reached out slowly and touched her shoulder. She flinched at first, but didn't pull away. "You're not alone now," he said. She looked at his hand on her shoulder. Her body began to shake again, but this time it wasn't from cold or fear. It was something deeper, something breaking and something healing at the same time. "You touch me like I am." "Precious," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Jack nodded. "Because you are Risha to someone. Somewhere you always were. They just forgot to tell you." She stared at him, silent. Then she slowly leaned her small head against his arm. Just for a second, like a child who had never known comfort but wanted to believe it was real. And in that moment, in that quiet cave, with fog outside and war behind her, Risha, tiny warrior alien, began to believe that maybe, just maybe, being precious wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the bravest thing of all. Risha sat near the fire. Her knees pulled to her chest. The light danced across her small face, shadows moving over her sharp cheekbones. Jack sat across from her, drinking warm liquid from a metal cup. The silence between them was not cold anymore. It was gentle, soft. Like to people who didn't need to speak to understand. Then, Risha looked up. Her purple eyes glowed faintly. "In the dim light, do you want to know about my past?" she asked. Jack set the cup down and nodded. "Only if you're ready." She looked at the fire for a moment. Then she began, "I was born on a warship orbiting Vernex 9, she said. My people. We are not many, so every child is trained to be a fighter from the start. There are no parents, only commanders. We don't have hugs. Names are given after the first battle. I was called Unit 4L. Jack frowned. "But Risha?" "Name," she whispered. "I gave it to myself when I started thinking like something more than a weapon." Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled. She pulled off one of her gloves and showed Jack her small hand. The fingers were scarred. The skin rough and burned in some places. I held a plasma blade before I could count to 10. She said, "I passed my first survival test at age 11. I watched others fail. They did not return." Jack leaned forward, his face calm. "You survived so much." "I did," she nodded. "But surviving is not living. I killed creatures with my bare hands. Poisoned targets, led stealth missions. All before I ever felt the warmth of a fire without fear." Her lips tightened. "One day, we were sent to a jungle moon. Much like this one, we were told to clear out threats, but we were the only ones who became threats. We were ambushed by the Gurnikha rival species. They were stronger. They came in waves. My whole squad fell. I was the last. I ran. I ran until I couldn't feel my legs." Jack's chest ached hearing her words. She was just a child. But she had carried a lifetime of war. "I hid in caves, climbed trees, set traps," she continued. "I kept hearing my commander's voice in my head. A dead warrior is better than a weak one, but I didn't die." She looked at Jack with tired eyes, and I hated myself for it. For not dying with honor, for running. Jack reached for a nearby plant and tossed it gently into the fire. Watching it spark blue, "You didn't run from battle. You ran toward life." She shook her head. "I didn't know what life was until you came. You looked at me like I mattered. You didn't mock my size or fear my blade. You gave me food." Jack smiled softly. "Sometimes food is the first kind of love someone ever knows." That made Risha stop. Her head tilted slightly. "Love?" She said the word like it was something strange in her mouth. "We have no word for that. Only bond to commander or loyalty to war clan. You don't need a word." Jack said, "Sometimes you just feel it." Risha stood up suddenly and walked toward the cave's entrance. The fog outside had returned, glowing softly under two pale moons. She looked up at the stars above, her arms folded tightly. "I used to look at stars and wonder," she whispered, "if somewhere there was a place where I could just exist. Not fight, not prove myself, just be." Jack walked to stand beside her. "Earth is like that," he said. "Not perfect, but we try to give people chances, even broken ones. Am I broken?" She asked quietly. Jack looked at her. This tiny warrior who had fought monsters and loneliness and guilt all by herself. "No," he said. "You're not broken. You're healing." She didn't respond, but her breathing slowed. Then, without warning, she took off a small medal from around her neck. It was old, scratched, and dirty. "This was given to me after my third mission," she said. "It meant I could command others. It was the only thing I had left from my squad." Jack watched as she looked at it one last time, then threw it into the fire. The flames swallowed it, and Risha didn't look back. "I don't want to be a weapon anymore," she said. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then don't be. Be something new, something free." Her eyes watered just a little, but she wiped them quickly. "What comes after war?" she asked. "What am I if I am not a fighter?" Jack looked into the fog, then back at her. "You're Risha, a girl who wants to live." And for the first time in her life, she smiled, not a warrior smirk, not a trained mask, but a real smile, small and unsure, but filled with something. New hope. The jungle was too quiet. Jack felt it first, not in his ears, but in his gut. The birds had stopped singing, the wind had slowed, and even the buzzing bugs seemed to vanish. Risha crouched at the cave's edge, her purple eyes scanning the trees. Her small hands reached for her blade, fast and silent. She didn't say anything, but Jack could feel it too. "Something's wrong," he whispered. She gave a small nod. "They're watching us." Jack grabbed his rifle and powered up the scanner. Small red dots blinked on the screen surrounding them. 1, 2, 5, 7. Pirates. Risha hissed under her breath. "They hunt survivors, steal tech, sell lives. They smell weakness from miles away. How do they know we're here?" Jack asked. She pointed to the fire pit. "Smoke. We were too comfortable." Jack cursed under his breath and stepped back into the cave. He packed the gear quickly, throwing supplies into his bag. Risha stayed at the edge, still as a statue. Then she whispered, "Too late. They're moving." From the trees came shadows. Tall figures wearing scrap metal armor and dirty helmets. Their rifles had laser sights, and their faces were covered in glowing masks. One of them shouted in a deep, ugly voice, "Come out now, or we'll cook you in there." Jack looked at Risha. "How many exits?" "Just one," she replied, eyes locked on the shapes. "But we can make our own." Jack nodded and grabbed his pulse grenade. "We'll have to move fast." She reached into her belt and pulled out. Two small darts dipped in black liquid. Her hands didn't shake this time. She was ready. The first shot came from the trees, a burning plasma bolt that hit the cave wall and exploded with a loud pop. Smoke filled the entrance, and the pirates laughed. "Burn them out." Jack threw the grenade high and ducked behind a rock. It flashed blue and knocked two of the pirates backward. Risha dashed forward like lightning, sliding through the smoke and jumping up one of the rocks. She stabbed a pirate in the neck before he even knew she was there. Jack followed, using his rifle to blast a second enemy. They fought side by side, machine and blade, speed and strength. The pirates weren't ready for teamwork like this. Juan tried to shoot Risha from behind, but Jack threw himself in front. Taking the shot to his arm, he cried out, but stayed on, his feet firing back and dropping the pirate. Risha turned and froze for just a second when she saw Jack bleeding. "You're hit," she said. Voice shaking. "I've had worse." Jack groaned. "Keep moving." They ran into the forest, dodging trees and low branches. The pirates chased them, shouting threats. One pirate threw a grenade, but Risha kicked it back midair. It exploded behind them, sending two attackers flying into the trees. They reached a fallen tree large enough to hide behind. Jack collapsed behind it, breathing hard. His arm was burned. But he held his rifle steady. "We need a plan," he said. Risha peeked over the log and then ducked. They're regrouping. 2 minutes maybe, that's all we have. Jack reached into his bag and pulled out a small energy core. "I've got an idea," he said. "We overload this and attach it to your throwing darts. It'll explode." She asked, "Big enough to scare them off or take out the leader?" He said, "We aim for fear, not numbers." Risha's hands moved fast. She tied the tiny core to a thick dart, then coated it in poison. "Ready?" she whispered. "But I need a clean throw." Jack stood up, wobbling slightly, and walked a few steps into the open. "Then let me give you one." He raised his arms and shouted, "You want a fight? I'll give you one." The pirates looked surprised. Weapons aimed at him instantly. But just as one fired, Risha jumped from the shadows, spinning in the air, and threw the dart hard and fast. It hit the pirate leader's chest, stuck for a second and exploded in a flash of blue fire and smoke. Screams filled the air. Some pirates dropped their weapons and ran. Others fired blindly. But Risha was already gone from sight. Jack ducked and rolled back toward cover. "How many left?" he asked, breathing hard. Risha crouched beside him. "To maybe, but they're scared. They'll run," and they did. The last pirates vanished into the trees, cursing and limping away. Silence returned. Risha walked over and picked up a pirate's weapon, tossed it into a ditch, and came back to Jack. She knelt beside him. "You took the shot for me?" she said quietly. Jack chuckled. "You're smaller, easier to fix." Risha didn't smile. Instead, she gently touched his burned arm. Her fingers were careful, soft, trembling. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You stood in front of me, like a shield," she whispered. "I'd do it again." He said simply. Her voice cracked. "No one has ever protected me before." "Not like that." Jack looked into her eyes. "Then I guess you've never had a real teammate." She nodded slowly. "No. I never had a shield before." And in that moment, the jungle didn't matter. The wounds didn't matter. The pain was still there, but something else had begun to grow between them. Something stronger than steel. The sun rose behind the thick clouds, turning the jungle sky into soft orange and gold. Jack sat on a rock, breathing slowly, his left arm wrapped in glowing bandages. Risha stood beside him, holding a weapon she had taken from the pirates. But she wasn't guarding now, she was watching. "Him, still alive," Jack joked. Wincing as he moved, Risha looked at his wound. Her small brows pulled close. "You shouldn't have jumped in front of that shot," she said. "You'd have done the same." Jack replied with a faint smile. She looked away. "No, I wouldn't. I was trained to let the weak fall, to complete the mission no matter the loss." "But you're not like that anymore," Jack said gently. "You've changed." Risha didn't answer. Instead, she sat down on the dirt beside him. Her tiny fingers played with the edge of the cloth on her arm. Her voice was low, almost afraid to speak. "You protected me, like a shield. You let your body take the hit. You didn't think twice." Jack shrugged. "It wasn't a hard choice." She looked at him, her eyes glowing softly. "In my culture, a shield is sacred. A blade is power, but a shield is love. Only family can be a shield." Jack paused, surprised. "That's beautiful." Risha nodded slowly. "When I was little, I watched a mother cover her child during a training accident. She was punished for weakness, but the child called her Shield Mother forever. It became a secret name, whispered like a treasure. She turned to him and placed her tiny hand on his wrist. "You are my shield now," she said in a shaky voice, "and I don't know what that means for me, but it feels real." Jack blinked, his throat tight. He'd never been anyone's shield before. Not like this. Not with this kind of meaning. Before he could speak, Risha stood up and walked toward the pirate wreckage. The broken ship still smoked from the fight. Jack limped after her. She stopped near the pirate leader's helmet. "Now split in half. I want to leave this place," she said quietly. "Not just this jungle. Not just this world. I want to leave who I was behind." Jack looked at her, the wind playing with her silver hair. "You can," he said. "You already are." Risha turned toward him. "Then help me do it. Teach me how to be more than a weapon." "I will," Jack promised, "but only if you help me too. I still don't know how to survive out here without you. You saved my life more than once." A soft smile pulled at her lips. "Small and strange. We're a team," she said. He nodded. "The strangest team in the galaxy." They worked together to gather supplies from the wreckage: batteries, energy cells, weapons. Food packs, everything that could be useful. Jack's ship might be broken, but with these parts, they had a chance to fix it. That night, they returned to the cave. Jack rested while Risha sat by the fire, slowly sharpening a blade knot for battle, but for comfort. Her eyes stared into the flames, lost in thought. "Do you miss your people?" Jack asked. She didn't look at him. "No. But I miss the idea of them. The dream that maybe they could change too." Jack shifted. "Maybe one day they will. And maybe you'll be the reason they do." Risha was quiet, then said, "If I had met you when I was younger, maybe I wouldn't have lost so much. You still have a future." Jack said, "That's more than most get after war." She looked at him then, her face full of something rare hope. "Jack, if your ship works, will you take me with you?" He didn't hesitate. "Of course, you're my co-pilot now." She tilted her head. "What's a co-pilot?" Jack grinned. "It means the one who flies beside you, not behind, not below, but equal." She nodded slowly, like she was tasting the meaning of that word, co-pilot. She repeated softly, "That I like." They sat beside each other. No more smoke outside, no more eyes in the trees, just a tiny alien girl and a human man. Two broken fighters learning what it meant to protect, to trust, and maybe to care. Risha picked up a small stone and carved a shape into the cave wall, a shield with 2 stars above it. She looked at it and said, "This will remind me that someone once stood for me." Jack looked at the carving and smiled. "And I'll remember that someone once called me her shield." The fire crackled softly, and the night wrapped around them like a quiet promise. The war was not over, but something new had begun, and this time they were not facing it alone. Night came. Quietly. The stars above blinked like tiny memories in the dark sky. The jungle around the cave had gone silent again, but this time it felt peaceful, not like danger waiting, but like the world was holding its breath. Jack leaned against the cave wall, eyes half closed. His arm was healing slowly, thanks to Risha's care and strange glowing plants she had crushed into paste. He watched her from across the fire. She was sitting very still, holding something close to her chest, his old jacket. It looked too big on her tiny frame. The sleeves dragged on the ground, but she hugged it tightly like it was made of gold. Her face was quiet, soft, thoughtful. Nothing like the sharp warrior she had once shown to the world. Jack cleared his throat softly. "You okay?" Risha looked up, startled. For a second, then nodded. "Yes, I was just remembering, good or bad." Jack asked gently. She looked down. "Both?" He waited. Risha spoke slowly, her words careful. "Back in my unit, we weren't allowed to rest like this. No sitting, no talking, no fire. We slept with eyes half open. Kate, in silence. And if someone showed fear or comfort, they were taken away. Jack's chest felt heavy. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked at him again. "But now, I'm here. And this." She hugged the jacket tighter. "This feels warm, not just from fire, but from you? I don't know the word, but I like it." Jack smiled faintly. "That's called comfort." "Comfort," she repeated, like it was a sacred word. "My people say comfort makes the blade dull, but I think maybe it sharpens the heart." Jack couldn't help but smile wider. "You're wiser than half the generals I've met." She looked serious. "Do you think? If I stayed like this, they would hate me." "Your people?" Jack asked. She nodded yes. "If they saw me wearing a soft jacket, sleeping near a human, smiling, they'd say I was weak, not worthy of the warrior blood." Jack leaned forward. "Then maybe their blood is wrong, because what I see is someone strong enough to be kind and brave enough to rest." Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. So she just nodded slowly and stared into the fire. After a long pause, Jack spoke again. "My ship," he said. "I checked the core. The pirates had some spare parts, I think. I can fix it in 2 days, maybe 3. Risha looked up fast, her eyes flashing with something: fear, surprise, sadness, all at once. "You'll leave?" she asked quietly. "I want to get back to Earth," Jack said honestly. "I've got people waiting, a mission to report." But he hesitated. "You don't have to stay here, Risha. You can come with me." She stood slowly, her hands gripping the jacket tighter. "I don't know if I belong there," she whispered. "I don't belong here either. Not anymore. The jungle doesn't scare me, but the silence does. I used to love silence. Now I hate it." Jack stood too, his voice calm. "You don't need to belong to a place. You just need someone who believes you do." She stared at him. "Do you believe I belong?" "Yes," Jack said, without blinking. "I do." Her lips trembled, just slightly. "Even if I don't know how to act. Even if I don't understand smiles, or hugs, or her voice cracked, or what it means to be special to someone." Jack stepped closer. "You don't have to understand it, Risha. You just have to feel it, and I already see it in you. You care now. You listen. You stayed with me when you could have run." She turned away for a moment, wiping her face with her sleeve. Her voice was low, like wind between the trees. "I want to stay. Not in this cave, not in this jungle, but with you." Jack felt a warmth grow in his chest, the kind that had nothing to do with fire. "Then stay," he said simply. "Let's go home together." She looked back at him, her small face full of emotion she had never shown before. "Will Earth accept someone like me?" Jack nodded. "Earth accepts broken things. It fixes them. It makes strange people into family." Risha smiled, shy, small, but real. "Then I want to be strange too." They spent the night preparing. Jack taught her how to use the human scanner. Risha showed him how to trap jungle animals without killing them. They laughed once, both surprised by the sound. Before they slept, she asked one last question. "If I go with you, do I stop being a warrior?" Jack looked into her glowing eyes. "No," he said. "You just become a warrior who fights for peace now, not for war." Risha lay down beside the fire. Still wrapped in Jack's jacket, she closed her eyes and whispered, "Then I want to fight for peace, as your co-pilot." And the fire burned gently through the night. As two hearts so different, yet now so close, dreamed of a world where they didn't have to fight alone anymore. The sky was wide and open, no longer hidden by jungle fog. Jack stood near the edge of a clearing, looking at his ship, once broken, now shining again. It took them 3 days of hard work, scavenging wires, fixing the fusion coil, realigning the damaged wing. Risha had learned fast. Her hands were small but sharp, quick and full of purpose. Today, the ship was ready to fly, but the silence between them felt heavier than ever. Jack looked at her from across the clearing. She stood barefoot in the grass. Still holding the jacket close to her chest, her silver hair moved softly in the morning breeze. Her expression was quiet, but her eyes were loud with emotion. "So," Jack said gently, "it's time." Risha didn't move. She just stared at the ship. "It's big," she whispered. "It looks like it belongs to someone important." Jack chuckled softly. "It belongs to both of us now." "Co-pilot," that made her blink. Then her voice cracked. "Are you sure I can live on Earth? That they won't fear me or treat me like a thing?" Jack walked toward her, his boots brushing through the grass. "I can't promise everyone will understand," he said. "But I can promise I won't let you face them alone." Risha's grip on the jacket tightened. "I've never left a planet before, never been higher than the trees." Jack knelt down so they were eye level. "You've been brave in the jungle, in battle, in pain. Flying is easier than all of that." She gave a tiny smile. "Then I want to be brave one more time." They walked together toward the ship. The ramp lowered with a soft hiss, and lights glowed inside. Welcoming them, Jack stepped in first, then turned and offered his hand. Risha looked at it, then slowly placed her small hand in his for the first time in her life. She stepped into something not as a soldier, but as someone cared for. Inside, the ship hummed with quiet energy. Jack led her to the co-pilot seat, adjusted it for her height, and handed her a headset, ready to see the stars. He asked. Risha looked out the window at the sky above. "I used to look at stars and wonder if they ever watched me back." She said, "Now I get to touch them." Jack smiled. That's what home should feel like. The engines roared too. Life soft at first, then louder as the ship lifted from the ground. The trees fell away beneath them. The jungle became a green blur, and the sky turned bluer. Brighter, cleaner, Risha leaned forward, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jack checked the controls, steady hands guiding them higher. "Space is even better." As they rose into the upper atmosphere, the planet below faded into clouds and shadows. Above them stretched the endless stars, black velvet sky dotted with silver and gold. Risha gasped and pressed her hand to the glass. "No walls," she said. "No cages, just forever." Jack glanced at her. "That's what freedom looks like." She turned to him. "Jack, I want to learn everything. I want to know what hugs mean, how to smile without fear, how to live without thinking about battle plans. You will," Jack said. "One step at a time. You've already started." The ship reached orbit. An Earth signal beacon pinged on the screen. Jack opened the channel. "This is Captain Jack Thorne. Requesting clearance to return. I'm bringing someone with me, someone important." The reply came with surprise, then welcome. The gate opened. Jack turned to Risha. "They're ready for us." She nodded slowly, but her hands trembled. "Before we go," she said, "I need to ask something." "Anything," Jack replied. "If I forget how to be soft, if I start acting like a warrior again, will you remind me who I am now?" She asked. Jack smiled and took her hand. "I'll remind you every day, because who you are now is someone worth remembering." A tear rolled down Risha's cheek. The first she had ever allowed herself. "Then, I want to stay," she said. "Not just in your ship, but in your world. Your world is kind, even if it's loud and messy. And you." She looked at him deeply. "You touched me like I was precious, not dangerous, not small, just real." Jack squeezed her hand. "You are real, Risha, and from now on, you never have to prove your worth again. Just live. That's enough." The ship entered the human space lane, Earth shining bright ahead, not as a battleground, but as a promise. And as they flew toward it, side by side, the tiny warrior girl whispered with a soft smile, "Home is where someone cares."